Welcome back, everyone. We continue the grand finals of Preseason 2 here at Kart Rider Drift League. Currently, we actually have KWANGDONGFREECS leading 1-0. They took the first phase with an ace match win as we saw World take down Hyunsu.
So far, it is going pretty similar to that rematch happening in Preseason 1 where KWANGDONGFREECS and Liiv SANDBOX, they fought in the team match finals. And here in the rematch today, once again, KWANGDONGFREECS winning that Phase 1 off of that ace match. So in Phase 2, I feel like a lot more extra weight has been added onto the shoulders of Liiv SANDBOX. Yeah,
and especially because they give away that advantage now. KWANGDONGFREECS will have choice of priority, and surely they will choose speed mode priority as they dominated item mode, feeling much more confident in that front. Now let's take a look. Yes, indeed, KWANGDONGFREECS says we will happily choose our first round, and I gotta imagine, you gotta bring out Construction Chaos. I mean, this is a track that you're so good at, and Liiv SANDBOX has struggled with, and that will indeed be the first round. 100% win rate here for the KWANGDONGFREECS.
That is definitely going to be one of the biggest pickups that KWANGDONGFREECS could have chosen for themselves, and a quick ban onto WKC Japan circuit saying, nope, you're not going to get that this time, Liiv SANDBOX.
The crazy part is they even won that one, albeit it was very close, and KWANGDONGFREECS had to throw a Hail Mary to win it, but they say, we don't want to risk it. I mean, we accept that that was also maybe a little bit of lady luck on our side. We're not going to give you your comfort pick. We'll take that out of the run. So KWANGDONGFREECS, it definitely looks like they're coming into Phase 2 and saying, we're not risking anything. We want an absolute guaranteed win here.
That is what KWANGDONGFREECS really needs, because speed is the place where they should be concerned the most based on the form that Liiv SANDBOX showed there. And it's going to be a ban onto Village Boom Hill Tunnel.
Yeah, that's one that did plague Liiv SANDBOX the previous phase. Now, of course, it was KWANGDONGFREECS' pick at the time, but that was the one where Byung-Soo was able to stay in the lead, but it was only himself. He goes for a Hail Mary block on the railing off that Neil build, but it's himself who eventually drops into the river. Now, this does open up World Tour New York Rally, and Liiv SANDBOX will happily pick that up for round 2.
That is a very nice pickup for Liiv SANDBOX. Probably the best one they could have chosen at this point, and a quick pickup on Glacier Extreme Stadium from KWANGDONGFREECS there. No real surprise. Both teams, they kind of just don't shy away from this one.
Yeah, it is funny to me because if you're both so confident, generally I usually see teams in like other sports or, other competitions kind of leave that to the end and just say, okay, if it gets there, whoever is in better condition wins. But both teams, happily picking that up. I mean, especially KWANGDONGFREECS, they're happily picking it up every chance they get. Now in Phase 1, Liiv SANDBOX did dominate Glacier Extreme Stadium with a 1-2 finish.
And we're going to see the quick bans come out. Mine 3 shortcuts from KWANGDONGFREECS, as well as World Tour Terracotta Twister from Liiv SANDBOX, which surprises me because I didn't really expect this track to be banned out today.
Yeah, they continue banning it out, though, here in the second phase of bans, both in Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the Grand Finals. We return once again to Zigzag Timberland. If we go to round 4, curious to see round 5. I can't imagine that KWANGDONGFREECS will pick Factory Facility 5. I think they'll be taking us to a different track, so maybe a bit of a change here in the overall track list, as we currently have Glacier Extreme Stadium and Zigzag Timberland repeated. And wow, KWANGDONGFREECS taking us to Mine Winding Slopes in team mode. Now I've seen everything.
I love how surprised you are by this one here, Will. And it's definitely one to throw us off, and I feel like round 5 is the perfect place to throw in these really crazy tracks that no one expected to see coming.
Yeah, I mean, again, you just won the ace match there, World. He's constantly looked good at it. I mean, Spear has a crazy highlight on that track as well. But also, this is one where overall, as a team in team mode, they've never looked that clean. So it is surprising to me that they are taking us there to the very end. But we saw there in the win rate, it's not like Liiv SANDBOX has been really a shining example for that track either. And so we have quite a different lineup. We'll be kicking things off in Construction Chaos, ending things in Winding Slopes if it gets there. We'll have a chance to review that after we go through the item mode draft.
It feels like these speed mode drafts have been going super duper fast, and I assume it's going to be the same for item mode as well. And I feel like Liiv SANDBOX, they have to switch up their strategy now because they are the ones to first pick here now, and it's going to be Village Clock Tower Crossing.
Yeah, that one was banned out by KWANGDONGFREECS earlier. So Liiv SANDBOX choosing to take us there. Again, one of those tracks that neither team has seen victory on just yet here in Preseason 2. Cogwheel Crush will be banned out once again.
Yeah, I love that Cogwheel Crush ban from Liiv SANDBOX because it's a track that they've played a lot but haven't found too much success on. Desert Pharaoh's Pass, the ban from GWANGDONGFREECS, as well as a Mine Magma Cavern pickup.
Yeah, the Magma Cavern returning here for KWANGDONGFREECS. We saw some success on there previously, and they'll try to continue that again by picking up against Liiv SANDBOX.
We kept highlighting Liiv SANDBOX having such a good performance in Magma Cavern, but it's so interesting that GWANGDONGFREECS keeps not shying away from it, and as a response to that, Liiv SANDBOX, they bring in World Tour London Night, and this is a track that I feel like both teams are pretty decent at.
Yeah, now this is a track that in the very first preseason of the year, preseason 1, Liiv SANDBOX absolutely dominated on this track in item mode, and then they started to falter a little bit once the item meta started to change. They were trying to juggle different ideas. Not as clean as preseason 1, but still a confident track for both teams.
Absolutely, and now we are going into the second ban coming out of Liiv SANDBOX, and you can see they don't really take much time at all there. Village Town Hall going to be immediately taken out.
All right, so a bit of a change up here in terms of the bans, but KWANGDONGFREECS says we will be banning out that Polar Halfpipe. It was picked up by Liiv SANDBOX in Phase 1. We didn't get there as KWANGDONGFREECS had a clean 3-0, but KWANGDONGFREECS not taking any chances.
And of course, we see the My Mother Load being picked up by KWANGDONGFREECS here yet again. And I feel like My Mother Load is a track that, once again, both teams are pretty successful at. But if anything, KWANGDONGFREECS, they were super dominant in it this season around.
Yeah, and in that Phase 1, I mean, I'll be honest, it didn't look clean for Liiv SANDBOX. I mean, Liiv SANDBOX definitely didn't get any of the kind of clutch items that you'd usually look for in Track 3, but they also weren't set up with a backup plan as they got into that last lap, so curious to see if they'll be able to have an adjustment as KWANGDONGFREECS puts that into round 4 once again. And then in the very last round, if it gets there, we will have another new look. This time it's going to be Factory Brody's Glue.
I love when I see a factory track for round 5 because it feels like it's the final Hail Mary where everything's going to go down. You know, item mode by itself, it's already crazy with all the offensive items coming back into the meta. But when the track itself is trying to slow you down, that's really going to throw players in for a twist.
All right, so the draft is done for Phase 2. If KWANGDONGFREECS is able to take victory in Phase 2, they will be crowned the winners once again. They will win back-to-back preseason titles and be the preseason kings as the KDL revs up for the regular season in the rest of the year. We take a look at the speed track draft before we jump right into it. Round 1, it's going to be KWANGDONGFREECS' bread and butter, Desert Construction Chaos. Then World Tour New York Rally, 2 very different starts than Phase 1, but then we see a bit of a repeat on Extreme Stadium, Zigzag Timberland before we potentially go all the way to Mine Winding Slopes.
I love the fact that there's such a switch in pace given that this time around in Phase 2, KWANGDONGFREECS, they had speed priority. So you have to wonder if KWANGDONGFREECS this time, they're going to be able to win in speed. They absolutely need that momentum to start right here in round 1 of Speed Phase 2. And we are going to be taken to Desert Construction Chaos.
And the race is off. You can see at the top of your screens, right under the scoreboard, we do have KWANGDONGFREECS' logo for Phase 1. They take that victory. We are currently in speed mode of Phase 2.
And it seems like so far, World and Sungmin, they're looking to control that 1-2 right off the bat. However, keep in mind that Liiv SANDBOX, they are winning that midfield. Spear, he's stuck in 8th place, which is disastrous for KWANGDONGFREECS.
Yeah, now one way that KWANGDONGFREECS always secures victory on this track is that they keep this lead, and then once you go into the construction area, as you get towards that 90-degree turn, you basically just play safe. You slow down, make sure everyone collides into you, keep that lead before going into that final jump. But right now, Hyunsu already putting pressure on that plan and saying, you guys aren't getting comfy as we get near the end of track 1.
And especially in a track like Desert Construction Chaos, it's really hard to pass the other players because especially on a corner like this, you have to slow down in order to not collide, and we can see that second place really being held nicely by Hyunsu.
Yeah, Hyunsu tried to put a little bit of fake pressure there, trying to say that he was going to cut the inner line on the 90-degree turns, but just forcing everyone to slow down, and then everyone avoiding that collision. Now that bought time for Neil to catch up as Hyunsu takes a draft and is able to take that first spot for the time being.
Liiv, SANDBOX, and Guangdong Freaks, they're so close right now in the standings, but Guangdong Freaks, they have the 7-8 placement, so they need this 1-2 to keep up from Sungbin and World, and Neil is doing all he can to collide into World.
Yeah, meanwhile, in that picture-in-picture, it's all up to Jimin to try to make sure he can continue to put pressure and Cool and Spear so that the only win condition Guangdong Freaks will have is the 1-2 punch.
And so far, that punch is coming on too strong. Hyunsu, however, with an aggressive inner there, he's able to cut in front of World, and now he's between the two players. World is doing all he can, and that's going to cost him his line.
Yeah, but Cool has caught up as well, so it's still anybody's game right now. 1, 2, 3, all spread across both teams. Hyunsu continue to put pressure on Sungbin, but I think Liiv, SANDBOX, they've accepted first seed. It's going over to Guangdong Freaks as Liiv, SANDBOX, they absolutely try to secure the 2, 3, 4, and even Hyunsu putting pressure by taking first, not letting go of the point lead right now. Sungbin will do whatever he can, but there is no option for him to bring home victory other than stopping and blocking every single racer, and it's going to be a 1, 2, 3 finish for Liiv, SANDBOX in dramatic fashion as they wrap up the first track of Speed Mode.
It feels like Guangdong Freaks, they were struggling from start to finish here in the Desert Construction Chaos. Yeah, it looks good when you can hold that 1-2. However, the 7-8 placement from Guangdong Freaks, it placed too much pressure on the runners. They didn't have the backup, whereas Liiv, SANDBOX, they were able to catch up eventually and secure that 1, 2, 3, 5.
Yeah, it's crazy because Liiv, SANDBOX, while they've consistently banned this track, the 2 times they had to play it before coming into the Grand Finals, they actually sniped it away from the other team. So it's not exactly an entirely weak track, it's just one they didn't prefer. And now Guangdong Freaks, they came in confidently, and they once again fall to that snipe coming in from Liiv, SANDBOX. Liiv, SANDBOX lead 1-0 here in Speed Mode of Phase 2.
That's actually been the trend of Phase 1 Speed Mode as well, where when we were beginning, all the tracks picked by the teams, they were losing in them and letting their opponents take the momentum there. So now the next track being Liiv, SANDBOX's choice, if Guangdong Freaks wins here, it's gonna be like there's some curse going on today.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times when you get into these kind of long-form battles in the Grand Finals of any competition, you generally practice for what you think your opponents are strong at because you're comfortable with what you're good at. And then you start to trade blows. So curious to see if that'll happen here on World Tour New York Rally, another track that was banned in Phase 1. It is opened up this time in Phase 2 for Liiv, SANDBOX as we go into track number 2.
Team Speed Round 2 starts here right now, and it's Guangdong Freaks Cool having the best record here so far out of any of our players. But you take a look at the roster of Liiv, SANDBOX, outside of Jimin, they have a phenomenal lead.
Yeah, and oh wow, a 1-2-3 lead right now for Liiv, SANDBOX. I mean, if Jimin can simply get away from 8th place or even just pressure Cool and World to a certain extent, this is already looking pretty solid for Liiv, SANDBOX. Now, there's a couple areas once you get to the bull here coming up around the turn, and then as you exit the terminal into the park, those are 2 big areas where you look for a bit of a comeback, and Pyeongsu with a great block is able to recover around that turn.
Absolutely, and right now, if you look at the 1-2, Sungbin has been constantly hot on the heels of Hyunsu and Neil, but not able to come across them because Neil, with such a nice lead for himself, it's opening up Pyeongsu to also now catch up to the front of the pack and try to sweep Sungbin out of the way.
Yeah, and you can just see that Guangdong Freaks feels the pressure, right? Cool even going for a bit of a switch on that build there just to take that extra boost while he keeps building that gauge, avoid some of that collision to try to catch up, but it puts him nowhere close to the front of the pack. And I've never seen Pyeongsu play so aggressively, but he's doing a great job of tying up Sungbin for the time being. Spear now trying to help break his teammate away from Pyeongsu.
The adaptation of the sweeper rolls right now coming from Liiv, SANDBOX is proving to be too much for Guangdong Freaks to handle. It's all up to Sungbin and Cool to try to break apart this 1-2, but that collision seems to set things in stone, and Liiv, SANDBOX, they're gonna punch in their 1-2 punch victory.
Yeah, and the team boost way ahead for Liiv, SANDBOX as well. Hyunsu crossing the finish line with another team boost left over. Never needed it as he takes the draft, comes in 1, Neil comes in 2 right alongside him. And it's going to be a clean 2-0 lead here in speed mode of Phase 2 in the Grand Finals.
It seems like the curse has been broken, Will. Liiv, SANDBOX, they won in their own track that they chose. So it feels like a lot of the momentum is swinging for Liiv, SANDBOX now, being up 2-0. In fact, Hyunsu is going to beat Cool in his record and set one for Liiv, SANDBOX.
Yeah, nice new record here from Hyunsu. I mean, this was just an easy race for Hyunsu and Neil. They were never really pressured thanks to Byung-soo sitting in third place, sweeping away anyone who's trying to approach. And eventually we saw a couple attempts coming in from KWANGDONGFREECS, but it was a little too late as they couldn't get into draft range, had to go for an aggressive build towards the very end and rammed themselves right into the wall. So now, one track away from securing that speed mode once again for Liiv SANDBOX, and now trying to even maybe secure the item mode coming up afterwards.
Liiv SANDBOX, if they can continue on this momentum and win their next round, just as you put it, Will, we will be moving on to item mode with a speed victory once again for Liiv SANDBOX. And that's absolutely what they need right here, right now. Insu and Seungha is cheering from the crowd today to support their brothers. The new Su duos in Hyunsu and Byung-soo has been pretty much filling that missing Insu so well here so far in KDL Preseason 2. But now, ladies and gentlemen, we are ready for round 3. It is going to begin in Glacier Extreme Stadium.
And the race is off. Again, this is a track that both teams are so accustomed to. Here's to see KWANGDONGFREECS. Can they start the comeback here in round 3 of Phase 2?
The new Su duos leading the pack right now for Liiv SANDBOX, holding on to that 1-2 pretty fiercely. Spear and Sungbin, they're forced to play catch-up, but keep in mind that World, he is down right now in 8th place, which is uncharacteristic of him.
Yeah, but Spear and Sungbin, I mean, they're in very good position to eventually disrupt Hyunsu and Byung-soo. Spear already putting on the pressure, and Byung-soo, once again, good recovery. He's improved so much when it comes to the team mode contention. I'm very impressed. Eventually, let's weigh. However, still really sticking around to provide support for Hyunsu.
I love that Byung-soo is going for all these blocks and dodges. He's weaving through them beautifully. In fact, he's going to crash Spear into the wall and try to buy more time and space for Hyunsu here.
Oh.
Look at Byung-soo, so aggressive right now.
Yeah, just completely messes up the acceleration coming out from Sungbin as well. And he's able to maintain his own with the boost. Now everyone trying to cut to try to catch up. But the big news is no one, not a single racer on the track currently next to Hyunsu to try to overtake him.
Jimin, he's playing that sweeper role on 2 players from KWANGDONGFREECS right now, all by himself. And it seems like Spear is going to penetrate that defense, but Hyunsu is so far away.
Yeah, and because Spear was so focused on blocking off Byung-soo, he does get a nice stop against him right in front. But Jimin pressures him again, where Spear has to regain control. Gives an opening for Byung-soo. Once again, the 1-2, the new Su duo coming out from Liiv SANDBOX. We approach the hairpins towards the end of lap 2. Jimin once again pressuring Spear. Spear just wants to break apart. The 1-2, try to get an advantage, try to make an opening happen. He's right up there, but Byung-soo, he's constantly slowing down Spear, even trying to make him fall off the jump.
Spear has done such a phenomenal job of sweeping up in here, but he's by himself, and that is the main point here. Liiv SANDBOX, they have an easy recovery here for that 1-2-3 finish. The 6-7-8 placement for Cool, Sungbin, and World was just too tough for Spear to try to carry.
Wow, the 1-2-3 finish to get the 1-2-3 rounds in speed mode here of the second phase of the grand final. Liiv SANDBOX, they continue to win speed mode here in the team match finals, but can they do the same in item mode?
You have to assume they can, because it feels like once the track priorities have changed, the momentum has completely shifted as well. In Phase 1, Liiv SANDBOX, they went down all the way to the 5th round here in speed, but now they're able to close it off in such a clean fashion. If they can keep this up, that is the momentum they need to win Phase 2 and take us to a Phase 3.
Yeah, I absolutely want to give a shout out to Byung-soo, right? I mean, everyone has grown so much. I mean, all racers on the stage right now throughout Preseason 2, but Byung-soo was that racer where a lot of people agreed they saw the potential in Preseason 1. And then coming into Preseason 2 on Liiv SANDBOX, it was very clear that he was just so focused on his own builds that once he was messed up, he wouldn't be able to recover. He couldn't get through these physical fights, the kind of scuffles and the body checking, things like that. And now he's the one who's able to put pressure and take these aggressive moves. Even if it sometimes costs him the race, he doesn't give up, brings it right back in the second phase.
Honestly, Will, I think for Byung-soo, it's the hair difference. You can see he went golden mode.
Yeah,
like,
all right.
Like from Dragon Ball Z, you know when your hair turns golden, that means you powered up.
Yeah, I mean, the yellow racer is the first seed when it comes to solo matches. There's a trend.
Ah, you see
Liiv
where I'm going.
Liiv SANDBOX is gold and black, right?
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
There's something going on here. Maybe GWANGDONGFREECS players need to dye their hair all red and turn into tomatoes on the stage because they need something to bring things back. As we take a look at the item mode draft, Liiv SANDBOX had item mode priority, or they were rather given item mode priority, and they will bring us to Village Clock Tower Crossing to start.
Absolutely, and right now we can see that it seems GWANGDONGFREECS, they're so confident in the mine-themed tracks despite Liiv SANDBOX having shown such a phenomenal performance in there as well. So GWANGDONGFREECS having won that Phase 1 in a dominating 3-0 fashion, I'm sure they're now coming into this Phase 2 of item mode feeling like this is home ground for them where they can start to win again.
Yeah, we got a full house in the stadium today to watch this rematch here in the Grand Finals of Preseason 2. Will Liiv SANDBOX take us to Phase 3? We find out as things kick off on Clock Tower Crossing.
We have the pleasure of visiting Village Clock Tower Crossing after it's been banned out in Phase 1. And this is a very crazy track. So many players have spent numerous hours researching into tactics, how to succeed here, and one of the popular strategies have been to build yourself that significant lead and go for that all-retire play that Dalta has previously shown us.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that can happen. I mean, this is another one of those tracks, even here in item mode, that if you're able to keep that lead, you should have a massive advantage of crossing that finish line towards the end, as you will want to go through this shortcut. We see it on the screen coming up. You have to go through these boxes, and as soon as you come out, it's just the finish line there. It's so hard to try to overtake someone there in the last turn.
And right now, here in lap number 2, we can see Spear. He's holding on to an Angel, so that's going to most likely stick with us all the way to lap number 3. Whereas the shield actually coming out from World was a bit too late, so he's going to get caught out by that.
Yeah, UFOs on both sides. Liiv SANDBOX just going to use theirs to try to bring the tempo back. Even a missile slowing down World. So GWANGDONGFREECS not able to entirely escape the grasp of Liiv SANDBOX just yet. Neither team having 2 FT of a lead, although as I see that World starts to get ahead just a bit. Nothing slowing him down anymore. They're not even able to really target him from their screens right now. Finally, a missile goes through and brings the speed right back down for World.
Keep in mind that Dalda all the way in the back, he has a Lightning as well as a Magnet. We saw Byung-Soo get really slowed down there, but it doesn't matter because now he can play the supportive role for his team and try to pick up some items that can help his team out. As we see World, he is really far right now.
Liiv SANDBOX has to use a Lightning Bolt right now just to draw out that shield, get something else going, because there's no other way to catch up to him. They can't even target him on their screens right now. The UFO will do enough. Then they send the Lightning Bolt. It is slowing him down. The shield actually late from World because of the UFO, so he is slowed down quite a bit. The Angel Shield will keep him in the lead, but right now, what else do you have? You have nothing. You have to recycle all of your items on the side of Liiv SANDBOX. The water bombs, can it be enough to slow him down in the shortcut?
The shield from World was too good.
Doesn't
He's keeping
hit.
up the momentum. None of them is hitting.
But the
Finally,
Water Wisp.
World! He's going to get caught out by the Water Wisp here, but World still finalizes a victory for GWANGDONGFREECS.
And that's exactly what happens. It's so hard to overtake right out of the shortcut. That turn is so sharp, and it's so narrow coming out of the shortcut that unless maybe you have a UFO where they're not able to really turn their cart as they come out of it, something like that, it's very difficult to overtake. And despite their dramatic attempt from Liiv SANDBOX, so clutch Water Wisp, things like that coming out, the boost to go in through the clock tower, it still was not enough once the second Lightning Bolt was blocked out by that Angel Shield.
I love that GWANGDONGFREECS, they were able to win here despite it being the choice from their opponent, and the playstyle out of World was ideal here. He was able to absorb all the aggro from the teammates' Angels, his own shields, and in the end he was slowed down by numerous items like the UFO, but he's still able to maintain that lead.
Yeah, I mean, the timing from the UFO into the first Lightning Bolt was even good. It made him waste his shield, but there was a clutch Angel Shield coming out from the side of KWANGDONGFREECS, someone saving their teammate World so that he wasn't entirely caught up on. And now Liiv SANDBOX, they have to try for the item mode comeback as we go to round 2 on Mind Magma Cavern. This was the first track of item mode in Phase 1. KWANGDONGFREECS takes that victory. They're looking to do the same here in Phase 2.
And this is going to be a long track. We are very familiar with the layout of Mine Magma Cavern by now. You have to keep in mind that there are some narrow parts of this track where water bombs can be especially effective. So we need to keep our eyes on items like Angel to really come out for both teams.
Yeah, already a shield in store for Dalda. He's going to try to hang on to that as long as possible. Now, while that sounds like it's going to be very clutch, that also means he's only able to cycle through one item at a time. He cannot try to keep up the tempo constantly by cycling out both. So see if KWANGDONGFREECS are able to maybe keep that tempo up, maybe get much more aggressive when it comes to their item cycling.
And cool, he's having some great cycling right now through those shields, being able to absorb a lot of the aggressive attacks coming out from Liiv SANDBOX. And I love that Jimin attempted to try to execute Cool there, but Cool with a nice recovery.
Yeah, now Jimin does have an individual shield and an Angel. He actually doesn't use the first solo shield there to block out some of the attacks. Just keeping that for the time being. He's still in second place, so it could come in clutch towards the end of lap 3 once we get there.
Those water bomb chains are definitely sick, as we saw Liiv SANDBOX really starting to slow down. Now World once again trying to run off with this lead, but Jimin, he's holding on to a magnet, so Liiv SANDBOX not as concerned this time.
Yeah, this time no Angel shields on the side of KWANGDONGFREECS just yet. But once again, I mean, we've seen teams that try to save Lightning Bolt until the end, and then a clutch Angel shield comes out right near that timing, and they're not able to catch up. So Liiv SANDBOX, they got to start thinking about their timings right now.
In fact, Dalda is holding on to both the Lightning and Angel himself. No Angel on the opposing side of KWANGDONGFREECS, as it seems like Jimin, he's going to lose so much momentum.
Yeah, he's pretty much slowed all the way down. A great bunch of, but in
Another
return
one.
as well, it's
These
just
water
water
bombs.
bomb after each other, but the Lightning Bolt still there. But see, an Angel Shield comes in from Sungbin. Will they be able to block that out? No, they just had used it. An item draws out that block from Sungbin, and Byungsu takes that chance to try to catch up. He has to reset off of the magnet, but that gives a chance for Sungbin to just barely keep up his top speed, and he will slowly crawl across the finish line and bring home the second round victory.
That was the craziest finish to Mine Magma Cavern I have seen in some time, William. There were so many attacks being traded back and forth there. It feels like the Lightning, once it struck on KWANGDONGFREECS, the momentum was all gone, and Liiv SANDBOX, they were just gonna take it and sweep it, but it was actually KWANGDONGFREECS at the end with the better defensive timings that allowed them to secure this victory.
Yeah, very, very close. I mean, if Byungsu, or someone else had just reached top speed a bit earlier, maybe Liiv SANDBOX, they would have overtaken Sungbin near the end. But it is going to be this man on screen that brings home that second track victory in item mode. KWANGDONGFREECS looking to get another 3-0 here and try to take us to yet another ace match between these two teams.
And that's where KWANGDONGFREECS feels the most comfortable. They might as well send out World again if we do have that ace match. So it is incredibly important for KWANGDONGFREECS right now to focus. They just need to win one more round out of 5, whereas Liiv SANDBOX, they need to win all next 3.
Liiv SANDBOX, you can see it on Byungsu's face, so much going through their head right now as we take a look at some of these replays. I mean, this is where we saw double water bomb, and then another double water bomb. Everyone gets stopped from each other. Let's take a look near the ending here. Sungbin eventually, he has to use an Angel Shield to block off the missile. The Lightning hits, but Byungsu, he gets body blocked briefly. He gets magnetic, he resets to try to shoot forward his teammates, and it does look like the water was actually hit each other from each team, giving that opening for Sungbin to be able to catch up.
Yeah, the Byungsu, he was really trying to go for the finish line there, but once that momentum was killed, that's what gave that room for KWANGDONGFREECS to come with the comeback. And I must say, KWANGDONGFREECS, they're looking like the better team in item mode here today in Team Match Finals. We are ready to now move on into round 3 in World Tour London Night. This right here is match point for KWANGDONGFREECS. If they win here, right here, they need to go to an ace match to win Phase 2. Whereas Liiv SANDBOX, they have such a formidable task ahead of them to try to avoid that ace match.
I mean, Liiv SANDBOX, even if they're able to somehow bring things back in item mode or maybe even win the ace match, then you still have to go into that Phase 3, the King of the Hill ace matches, where it's basically 1v1s. The winner stays. You go through 4 racers on each side, and the last remaining racer will win. So it's a very long journey ahead for Liiv SANDBOX to try to bring things back.
So far, Cool has been doing a phenomenal job of staying in the lead for KWANGDONGFREECS, and he absorbed a lot of aggro before falling back down. You can see lightnings being held by each team, and there's an Angel on the side of Byungsu as well, so you have to wonder if Byungsu's going to be a supportive player now and stay in the back, because he might not want to cycle through his items.
Yeah, I mean, lots of just kind of those wombo combo items. Now, this is one of those tracks where the Magnet Boost combo can still be very deadly, either towards the end or maybe even to use it to get onto that upper shortcut here, get that extra boost from the track itself. And we're curious to see. That's why we see a lot of boosts still being saved up. They're not being cycled right away because there are some opportunities to try to overtake each other.
And it seems like Liiv SANDBOX are really just running off with this lead right now. It's going to force Spear to pop a magnet of his own in order to catch up. And we know Dalda, he loves to be the first place coming in through the finish line for Liiv SANDBOX. So GWANGDONGFREECS respecting that. They're going to utilize a UFO. Yeah, right now Jimin has magnet and boost combo as well. The double lightning still in favor of Liiv SANDBOX. Angel shields as well. No angel shields on the side of GWANGDONGFREECS. They do get a lightning bolt of their own, but they've already been slowed down once. The lightning bolt from GWANGDONGFREECS gets negated by the angel shield. There's still another combo left for Byungsu. Dalda just sitting ahead, putting down the bananas. You still have Jimin with the magnet boost as well. Curious to see right now, Sungbin just trying to draw out some of the aggro, block off the speed from Byungsu. Spear shoots ahead. Can Jimin catch up? Oh! Yes, it is going to be the boost right off of the lightning bolt, slowing down his opponent. And Jimin will shoot across the finish line. The perfect picture. This is exactly what Liiv SANDBOX has been looking for. And we see why they picked London Knight as they try to bring things back with one round on the board here in item mode. Sungbin was the man there for GWANGDONGFREECS, trying to come in to the finish line first, but Liiv SANDBOX, they're going to focus all their offensive items there onto Sungbin, and it gave Jimin just enough room. You can see there, 0.6 second difference coming into that finish line, and Liiv SANDBOX, now they're able to make it so that we're not getting 3-0'd by GWANGDONGFREECS here in item mode.
All right, they still have a long way to go, but they're just trying to crawl back in. Liiv SANDBOX would want nothing more than to just win this item mode, skip the ace match, take us straight to that King of the Hill 1v1 Phase 3, where it basically comes down to do or die time, who just simply has the stronger racers. Will we see that happen, or will GWANGDONGFREECS just try to shut things down, take us to another ace match here that World has absolutely been dominating? We'll find out as we go into round 4 on Mine Motherload. And the race begins, and I did find it amusing earlier when you mentioned, Peter, that GWANGDONGFREECS simply just seems to look like the stronger item mode team, because one of the interesting parts about this roster is they continue to maintain a 4-man roster. And quite frankly, maybe GWANGDONGFREECS is onto something. Why pay 5 salaries when you can pay 4 and still win all the titles?
Well, Liiv SANDBOX are definitely going to be considering that if they lose here yet again in item round 4. If GWANGDONGFREECS wins this one here, then we do have that ace match as well, where it feels like GWANGDONGFREECS somehow, they are the better team in that so far. So Liiv SANDBOX, they need to secure this round in the back first, which is why Byungsu having double lightning is super helpful.
Yeah, but again, double lightning, this is one of those things where you're like, okay, well, I guess I hold on to this to the very end, but it all comes down to timing. You give so much of a chance for your opponents to try to stack up those defensive items. Of course, they'll have to get it first, so maybe they'll have to keep cycling through. We'll wait and see. But here's the other thing. World, way far out. He's got double solo shields. He's not even on the minimap right now. We can't see him on the radar. There's no way to slow him down other than the lightning bolts. So right now they need to constantly try to find some way to target him around these turns with things like the missiles before they can hit him with the lightning bolts.
And keep in mind that World, he's sitting on 2 shields right now. Pretty much an ideal itemization for a player who wants to remain in the front. Keep in mind we are here in 2nd lap. World, he may as well enter the 3rd lap soon by himself.
You have to use your lightning bolts. You can't. Yeah, you have to use it just to catch up, because otherwise World will get way too far ahead. He picks up another shield though, so Byungsu, his last lightning bolt, it's not going to be effective just yet. They have to find a way to target it with something. Jimin, he doesn't have an offensive item as he comes across over this ramp that would have been an opening for him, but they're not going to find it just yet.
It's feeling like World constantly is getting double shields non-stop, and that is so ideal for GWANGDONGFREECS here. They just need World to stay in the front. In fact, Sungbin is holding on to an Angel, so it feels like GWANGDONGFREECS, they're going to take this lead all the way, maybe.
Yeah, Angel shield, another EMP in the book for World, another solo shield. There is simply nothing that is going to stop this man. He blocks attack after attack after attack. Now we do have one last lightning bolt from Byung-Soo, finally catching up. World, all that shield stacking, it's caught up to him for the time being. They send another UFO as well, and then the lightning bolt to make sure, but the water bomb, it slows down Liiv SANDBOX as they try to catch up. Now it's neck and neck. World gets bumped off the ramp, loses speed, and Liiv SANDBOX. What a dramatic race as they tie things 2-2 in item mode.
The Su duos, they finally did it. They were able to stop the rampage from GWANGDONGFREECS. They won the body check off the ramp, and they came in together as the duo brothers that we know and love. Liiv SANDBOX now tying up item mode here in Phase 2, 2-2.
Man, I will say, looking at the items that were coming up constantly on both sides, it just looked like there was no way possible. But just a couple of those timely magnets and other attacks coming in from Liiv SANDBOX allows Dalda to catch up. He then quickly just gives away first place because they know they can secure that UFO, which means they guarantee the lightning bolt as the other shields won't be coming out in time. And then it was eventually the Yusu duo where, I mean, World, he still had a shot, right? If he didn't get bumped off that ramp, you get to continue to ride that acceleration alongside your opponents. You would have had a chance to overtake them, but they just knock him right down. They say, no, this is our race to continue.
I love that Dalda, his shot calling was on point there, just as you said, Will. You can't hold on to that double lightning forever. When you got to use it, you just got to do it. And Byung-Soo, I feel like he utilized it at the right time, and it gave enough space for Jimin to catch up, and that's when GWANGDONGFREECS, they started to really falter because their original plan of running off with the all-retire has been crushed.
Well, all racers around the world, Liiv SANDBOX is currently one step away from bringing us to our very first King of the Hill Phase 3 in the KDL. Tied up in item mode 2-2, currently leading Phase 2 with that speed win. Liiv SANDBOX takes us to the very last round of item mode on Factory Brody's Gloom.
This item round 5 is going to determine the fate here. Liiv SANDBOX, if they win, they're able to win Phase 2 completely. So GWANGDONGFREECS, they need to win this at all costs and have another chance in the ace match.
Yeah, GWANGDONGFREECS, I mean, they feel so confident in ace matches. Surely they throw everything they have right now here on Brody's Gloom. We do see just a bit of a reset here. We're still continuing the race. Of course, the racer's unaffected. And we do see that it is currently Liiv SANDBOX that is keeping up that heavy lead.
Hyunsoo is holding on to a banana of his own, not much defensive items there, but he's able to stay in the lead just fine. And for GWANGDONGFREECS, they're seeming like they want to keep World in the lead there. He's going to quickly cycle through the EMP. Unfortunately for him, a UFO is going to catch on to him right after that.
Yeah, I just saw Cool way ahead on the screen right there, going right towards that middle door. I was like, oh, I don't know, Cool, but he correctly paces himself just to get through just fine. Once again, it does look like GWANGDONGFREECS are constantly trying to put World way ahead to try to keep that lead, but Hyunsoo and Dalda, they will move forward. Hyunsoo with double EMPs, surely he will cycle through those as we approach the items here. But right now, Dalda, he's got that Angel Shield and Lightning Bolt still. He's going to be holding on to that to the very end.
And Hyunsoo is going to get slowed down by the UFO there. It allows World to once again take the lead. We've seen this strategy from GWANGDONGFREECS many times today where they want World to stay in the front, but keep in mind that he is surrounded by 2 players from Liiv SANDBOX. Dalda, he's holding on to that combo we talk about, Angel and Lightning, that you may not cycle through, but somehow he's still in the lead.
Yeah, and World, he's just trying to get ahead because he knows he has that one solo shield to defend against himself. But earlier, Hyunsoo, we saw a great body block from him once again by Dalda, as well as Hyunsoo this time kept up the acceleration off of the boost. He's able to reach his top speed. World, he has to start cycling through his items to try to catch up to this duo of Liiv SANDBOX. Hyunsoo's still safe though. Now the water bomb, now it trades off to Dalda. I mean, this is why it helps to have 2 members in the front.
World is holding on to a double magnet here. That is going to be a scary combination for the likes of Byung-Soo, who wants to stay in the lead. A Lightning's going to come out in excellent fashion, and it's going to allow Byung-Soo to punch in a victory here in item mode of Phase 2 for Liiv SANDBOX.
And that will tie up the phases, which means, ladies and gentlemen, we see our first ever King of the Hill Phase 3 in team matches of the KDL. In Preseason 1, GWANGDONGFREECS was able to shut down Phase 1 and 2 in the ace matches, taking down both Neil and Insu in those 1v1s. But this time, correctly adjusting the draft, correctly adjusting the calls, coming into Phase 2, Liiv SANDBOX bounces right back with a dominant performance. And now each team will be preparing their roster, lineup, and order for the King of the Hill 1v1.
I am so glad that we get to finally witness the first ever King of the Hill here in KDL Preseason, Will, and the fact that Liiv SANDBOX, they were able to bounce back in Phase 2 there, despite Phase 1 going horribly wrong for them. It really shows the level of mental these players have. They're not easily shaken up by losing, and they earned themselves the right to play in Phase 3.
Yeah, I mean, both teams playing their hearts out. Quite frankly, it looked like KWANGDONGFREECS was going to bring us to another ace match, and at that point, I would have been worried just because of World's dominance. But Liiv SANDBOX, they turned things around in the third round of item mode here in Phase 2, complete the reverse sweep. They got the 3-0 in speed mode as well. So momentum currently on the side of Liiv SANDBOX as they trade Phase 1 and 2 against each other.
It's so crazy, Will. I love the fact that we're seeing a different result now here in Preseason 2. And Liiv SANDBOX, I feel like this is a team where you can't really put a finger on any of their weakness. They've played good in both speed and item. If anything, it was the ace matches. And now, if you take a thought about what King of the Hill is, it essentially is an ace match happening over and over and over again. So it's time for Liiv SANDBOX to prove that KWANGDONGFREECS isn't the better ace match team.
Yeah, and it's about the order that you submit your roster as well, right? There are certain tendencies of, who you race better against each other, and of course, depending on the win-loss, how you continue that track selection to try to keep up that advantage. Curious to see. We'll have to go through all of the rules for Phase 3 once we get ready for it. But basically, again, if you missed it, it's a King of the Hill. You submit your rosters ahead of time. It's the 1v1s, and then the winner stays, and the losing team will submit their next racers to challenge and try to take down the opposing team. Well, that's going to be coming up after this break. We will continue the Grand Finals in KDL Preseason 2 between Liiv SANDBOX and KWANGDONGFREECS.